All right, let's dive right into another deep dive. Today, we're going to try to unpack the controversy
Mm.
surrounding, Pakistani TikTok star Minahil Malik. We've got this leaked video, accusations of it being fake, maybe a publicity stunt. Who knows? We've got excerpts from any news sites, ET Online and Live Mint, and of course, we can't forget the video itself. So, are we ready to try to unpack all this?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to explore here. It feels like a real-life social media thriller with twists and turns.
Okay, so let's rewind a bit. What actually happened with this video? Like, what went down?
So the video allegedly shows Minahil in a compromising situation with a man, presumed to be, her boyfriend. And to make matters worse, explicit photos were leaked too, alongside the video.
Wow, so what was the immediate fallout from that? Did she try to get out ahead of it, control the narrative at all?
She immediately denied that it was real, claimed it was fake, and went as far as filing a complaint with the Federal Investigation Agency, the FIA, to investigate.
But I imagine that hasn't stopped the internet from just going crazy, right?
No, not at all. I mean, the online reaction has been fierce, to say the least. A lot of people are convinced it's a publicity stunt, orchestrated by Minahil herself, which, points to how cynical influencer culture can be.
Yeah, any publicity is good publicity kind of thing. That's a serious accusation, but I guess not entirely implausible in that world.
Yeah.
But what really stuck out to me is the comparison to that Bollywood film Heroin. Can you explain that connection?
Yeah, so that's where Pakistani actress Mishi Khan comes in. She posted an Instagram video where she kind of indirectly criticized Minahil, suggested that she was stooping to the lowest level for fame, and she drew parallels to this film, Heroin.
Okay, now I'm not familiar with the movie, so what happens in it that's relevant here?
Well, in Heroin, a fading actress, she intentionally leaks her own explicit video as a desperate attempt to, revive her career.
Yeah.
And so Mishi Khan seems to be implying that Minahil might have taken inspiration from that plot, basically accusing her of making up this whole scandal.
Right. Wow, that's a pretty bold claim, if she's right. It really makes you wonder about the lengths people will go to for fame these days. But what if the video is truly fake? Then what?
Well, then things get even more interesting, don't they? Because then you have to ask who would go to such lengths to create and spread a fake video, and what would they have to gain from that? It opens up a whole can of worms about potential rivals, personal grudges, maybe even something more sinister.
It's like a digital mystery. But this isn't even her first time dealing with leaked content, is it?
You're right. A few years ago, Minahil faced a similar situation. Photos and videos were leaked online.
So how is this time different? What's changed?
Well, what's interesting is the stark difference in the public reaction. Back then, she received overwhelming support from her followers, but this time around, it's mostly accusations and criticism. So why the shift? Is it possible that that maybe the public is just more prone to believe whatever narrative is currently dominating, the online space?
That reminds me of something we found in our research. A point raised by Ramesh Damani, an Indian investor. He talked about this herd mentality in the stock market, where investors kind of get swept up in whatever the prevailing narrative is, rather than doing their own research.
That's a great connection. So applying Damani's insight to Minahil's situation, could it be that public opinion is just being swayed by the current narrative around her without really, taking a deeper look at the facts?
That's definitely something to think about. I mean, let's face it, people love a good scandal, especially when it involves a public figure.
Exactly. And, Damani goes on to say that sometimes people throw the baby out with the bathwater. So in this case, the baby could be Minahil's previous good work, her positive contributions, or even just, the benefit of the doubt. The scandal is the bathwater, and people might be too quick to dismiss her entirely, based on this one incident.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the drama of it all. But maybe we need to step back and ask ourselves if we're really seeing the whole picture. This is definitely getting more complex. I'm curious to see where this goes.
Well, hold on tight, because in part 2, we're going to delve into the implications of this controversy and how it reflects, broader societal trends, particularly in online culture.
Can't wait.
Welcome back. So as we dig deeper into this Minahil Malik situation, it becomes clear that this isn't just about, a leaked video. It makes you think about how quick we are to judge people, especially online, where information spreads like wildfire.
It's true. It seems like everyone's already made up their minds about whether she's guilty or innocent without waiting for all the facts. Is this just how online culture works? Like, is this just how it is?
Well, there's definitely an element of that. This incident really highlights, the intensity and speed of online judgment. Social media, it can amplify the best and worst of us. And in Minahil's case, unfortunately, the court of public opinion seems to have reached a verdict before all the evidence is even inked.
That's like a digital witch hunt. And it's especially concerning because, she's a young woman. And we know that women often face much harsher criticism online than men do.
Oh, absolutely. There's definitely a gendered aspect to this story. I mean, would a male influencer facing a similar situation be subject to the same level of backlash? It's a question worth asking.
It really makes you think about, the double standards that still exist.
Mm-hmm.
And, going back to Ramesh Damani's insights, I'm really intrigued by his point about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. How do you think that applies to Minahil's situation specifically?
Well, I think there's a danger that people are so focused on the alleged scandal, the shock value of it all, that they're overlooking, her previous contributions, her overall character.
Right. It's like this one incident. Real or fabricated. It says completely overshadowed everything else she's done.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate reality of what we often call cancel culture. One misstep, real or perceived, and suddenly your entire past is up for reevaluation. And people are just so quick to dismiss someone entirely without considering the nuance of the situation.
It's almost as if people are just eager to find fault.
Right.
To tear someone down. It's a bit disheartening to see.
I agree. And it raises a crucial question about, our role as consumers of online content. Are we contributing to these cycles of outrage and judgment? Do we share things without verifying them? Do we just pile on with criticism without knowing the full story?
Those are some serious questions we all need to ask ourselves. I mean, it's easy to get caught up in the gossip, the drama, but we have to remember that there are real people involved with real lives and real consequences.
We can't forget the human element. And as consumers of online content, we have a responsibility to be more discerning, more critical, and above all, more compassionate in our judgments.
So where does this leave Minahil? Whether the video is real or fake, her reputation's been damaged. Can she recover from this?
It's hard to say. The internet has a long memory, and it's tough to escape the shadow of a scandal once it goes viral. But it's important to remember that the story is still unfolding. There might be more information to come.
You're saying there might be more twists and turns.
Potentially. We don't have all the pieces of the puzzle yet. The FIA investigation might uncover new evidence. Minahil could release a more detailed statement. New witnesses could come forward. There's still a lot we don't know.
So we're left with more questions than answers at this point. Does that mean this deep dive has failed?
No, not at all. I think that's part of what makes a truly compelling deep dive, right? It's not always about arriving at neat conclusions. It's about exploring the complexity of an issue, considering different perspectives, and accepting that. There are often gray areas.
You know what? I'm starting to realize that the most important takeaways from this deep dive aren't just about Minahil and her situation, but about how we engage with online content and how we form judgments about other people.
Exactly. This story serves as a powerful cautionary tale about the internet's ability to shape narratives, the speed at which information travels, and the critical need for empathy and critical thinking in the digital age.
Well said, well said. This deep dive has definitely been eye-opening.
It certainly has. And I think it leaves us with some crucial questions to reflect on.
Like what kinds of questions?
Well, for instance, if the video is fake, who stands to gain from its creation and distribution? What are the ethical implications of sharing and consuming this type of content online? And how can we, as individuals, become more responsible and discerning in our approach to online information?
Wow, yeah. Those are some heavy questions to think about. This whole deep dive has really taken us down a rabbit hole, hasn't it? It's like we've stumbled upon a real-life cautionary tale.
Yeah.
About, online fame and the dark side of the internet.
Yeah. It really is. And sadly, it's a story we see play out time and time again, in this hyper-connected world we live in. It's so easy for perceptions to get distorted, reputations tarnished in an instant, and basic human decency thrown out the window, all in the pursuit of views and clicks.
Yeah, it's unsettling. This whole thing has got me thinking about influencer culture in general. These young people face so much pressure to constantly create content, to stay relevant. And sometimes it feels like they're pushed to cross lines or use questionable tactics just to stay in the game.
It's a double-edged sword, for sure. I mean, social media can be an amazing tool for creative expression, building connections, but it can also breed this culture of sensationalism, where shock value trumps substance.
And it feels like women, especially young women like Minahil, They often bear the brunt of this online scrutiny. They're judged more harshly, held to different standards, and their missteps are amplified so much faster.
That's a really important point. We can't ignore the gender dynamics at play here. We need to ask ourselves, why are we so quick to believe the worst about women in these types of situations? Do we extend that same level of skepticism, that same benefit of the doubt to men? Probably not.
It's a good reality check for all of us.
Yeah.
We need to be more aware of our own biases, both conscious and unconscious. We can't just passively absorb whatever narrative is being presented to us online. We have a responsibility to think critically, to question assumptions, and to seek out different perspectives before forming our own opinions.
Absolutely. It's about cultivating that healthy skepticism, engaging in respectful dialogue, and remembering that behind every viral story, there are real human beings whose lives are being impacted by our judgments.
Well said. This deep dive has given us a lot to chew on, not just about how we consume content online, but also about how we treat each other in the digital world. It's a powerful reminder that while social media can be a force for good, we need to be aware of its potential for harm as well.
The biggest takeaway for me is this. Let's all try to be more thoughtful, more discerning, and more compassionate. In our online interactions, let's resist that urge to rush to judgment and instead approach these situations with empathy and a genuine desire to seek the truth, even when it's complicated and messy.
Beautifully put. It's a call to action for all of us. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder these questions and come to your own conclusions about the Minahil Malik controversy. But remember, the deep dive doesn't end here. It's an ongoing journey of exploration, reflection, and critical thinking. Stay curious, stay engaged, and stay tuned for our next deep dive into the ever-evolving world around us.